During dinner, they slid a little gift across the table, a cheap apron stamped with family's running joke. Everyone cracked up like always. I just stood up, grabbed my keys, and walked out without a word. 2 weeks later, my wife hosted. Please, if anyone's seen him, tell him we're sorry. The laughter in the dining room was deafening. It always was when I was the punchline. My wife, Claire, sat at the head of the long mahogany table, the table I built with my own hands, in the sprawling house I broke my back to pay for. Her brother, Mark, wiped a tear of pure mirth from his eye as he slid the brightly wrapped box across the polished wood toward me. Go on, open it, Mark choked out, barely containing a snort. We all chipped in. I pulled back the cheap glittering paper. Inside rested a stained, flimsy white apron, stamped across the chest in bold, mocking, custom-printed letters was our family's running joke. Head busboy and personal ATM. The room erupted. Claire leaned back, holding her expensive wine glass, giggling alongside her parents. For 10 agonizing years, this had been my designated role. The quiet provider, the background character, the guy who worked 80-hour weeks so Claire could find herself through endless expensive hobbies, and her family could enjoy all expenses paid, ski trips to Aspen. Whenever I showed exhaustion, I was a buzzkill. Whenever I served them drinks or paid the bill, I was just a busboy doing his job. I stared down at the apron. I didn't smile. I didn't shout. I didn't flip the table. Instead, a strange glacial calm washed over me. It was the kind of absolute, terrifying clarity you only experience when a heavy, suffocating chain finally snaps inside your chest. I slowly folded the apron, making sure the creases were perfectly aligned, and set it down next to my half-eaten steak. Oh, come on, don't be so sensitive, Claire chuckled, finally noticing my heavy silence. It's just a joke, babe. Lighten up. I looked up and met her gaze. Really looked at her. I saw the utter lack of respect in her eyes. The sheer entitlement dripping from her smirk. The way she looked at me not as a husband, but as a utility. I stood up. I didn't say a single word. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my car keys, and turned my back on them. The laughter died instantly, replaced by a sudden, confused silence. Where are you going? Claire called out, her tone shifting sharply from amused to annoyed. We haven't even had dessert yet. You're ruining the mood. The heavy oak front door clicking shut was my only answer. I didn't drive recklessly. I drove with chilling purpose. I went straight to a storage unit I had rented across town, grabbed the duffel bag of essentials I had been meticulously gathering over the past 6 months, and drove to the airport. You see, that degrading apron wasn't the start of my resentment. It was merely the universe's final confirmation that I was making the right choice. What Claire didn't know, what none of those laughing parasites knew, was that the joke had actually been on them for almost a year. 11 months ago, I discovered Claire had been secretly funneling tens of thousands from our joint savings into her brother Mark's failing, fraudulent startup. When I saw the bank statements, the illusion of our marriage shattered. But I didn't confront her. Confrontation just gives the enemy time to prepare their tears and excuses. I chose silent, systematic dismantling. I hired the most ruthless, quiet divorce attorney in the state. I legally separated my business assets through ironclad corporate loopholes. I took my name off the lease of her parents' luxury condo. I quietly sold my controlling shares in my own company and moved every last cent of the capital into offshore trusts she couldn't touch. The beautiful house they were eating dinner in, I hadn't paid the mortgage in 3 months. I deliberately let it slip into pre-foreclosure. For the first 48 hours after I walked out, my phone blew up with angry texts. You're acting like a child. Get over yourself and come home right now. By day 4, the tone shifted. Where are you? This isn't funny anymore. I never replied. I just dropped the phone into a trash can at an international terminal and boarded my flight. 2 weeks later, I booted up my laptop in a quiet cafe overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. I logged into a dummy account just to check the blast radius of my absence. There it was. A frantic Facebook post from Claire, shared over 300 times. Please, if anyone's seen him, tell him we're sorry. We just want him back safe. Attached was a picture of us from our wedding day, looking happy. But I scrolled past the lies and straight down to the comments. Her facade was already crumbling. A mutual friend asked if I was missing. Claire's sister had replied, clearly panicked. He drained the accounts. The bank is taking the cars tomorrow and the house is in foreclosure. He left us with absolutely nothing. They weren't sorry that I was gone. They were terrified because the ATM was empty and the busboy had finally quit his shift. I closed the laptop, took a slow sip of my espresso, and smiled a genuine smile for the first time in 10 years. The Mediterranean breeze felt incredibly warm against my face. The joke was finally funny.